death is a second away. People die every 5 minutes from a fentanyl overdose in America. There's 200 a day. It's a plane crash every day that's happening, and we're not doing anything about it, right? And so that's why we're here. The old way is out. The game's changed, the drugs changed, intervention has changed, and treatment's got to change.
This episode of Die Sober discusses sensitive topics that may be triggering to some viewers. If you are experiencing an emergency and need help, please call 911 or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988.
For non-emergency assistance, please use us as a resource. Visit us at thefirmaddictionconsulting.com, or for more information, call us 615-210-6703. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Die Sober podcast. Today, I'm joined by my co-conspirator, my good buddy, Mr. Zach Livingston. Zach, thank you for coming on, buddy.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely. Today, we are going to talk you guys through some kind of self-diagnostic tools. We want to help you guys understand your relationship with alcohol or with those recreational, maybe non-recreational drugs. Are they helping you have fun? Are you coping with something that is painful? Or are you sliding into abuse? And that's really been your wheelhouse, Zach, over our years together, is helping clients identify where they fall on that line. As we know, abuse and addiction fall on a spectrum, and hanging a title on somebody isn't helpful. Yeah. So talk to me real. What do you do when you've got a new client? You're bringing him into the fold. Let's say this guy's a male. He's 32 years old, kind of failure to launch, went to college a few times. He's just had this kind of blah experience as an adult in life. Where do you start with asking questions?
From the beginning. Really, okay. I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't want to slap a label on it, because, like, sometimes that just serves as, like, a barrier. And it's like a repellent, right? It's almost like, you put a trampoline under someone's butt as they're falling down, they just springboard back up and start running the other way. It just doesn't work. Right. So I always like to look at it as like we're going to do a little bit of like internal exploration. Okay. And the only way to do that is we're going to do a personal history lesson, right? Like, we're going to go backwards. We're going to dig up some dirt. We're going to find out what the actual behaviors around it look like. Okay. That way we can we really can, like, start pinpointing, like, okay, like, here's where something kind of happened, or here's where things went a little bit right, or here's where things went a little bit left, and try to pinpoint, just like you said, like, are we coping with something? Has this flourished into some kind of an actual addiction? Am I just trying to self-medicate to get through my day? Like, there is different levels to it, and, not everyone's an alcoholic who drinks. Right.
And I think that's important to know. I can sit here as an alcoholic in recovery and a drug addict in recovery, and I can say that. You can announce however you choose to announce, but there are millions of people out there who don't know where they fall on this spectrum, and if they did, I feel like there would be more people seeking relief in other ways other than substance. So that's what I want to get out today is, how do we help as almost like as a diagnostic between us? How do we help people realize kind of where they're at and form an action plan to get out if needed, right? So flip the script. Hit me with it, man. Start me with some questions. I'm your client. Okay. Run me ragged. Run me ragged. We'll get loose.
I'd like it, man. I mean, one, you're describing like my picturesque client. Like, that's the portrait. Like I said, start at the beginning. And, like, for me, question number one just kind of looks like, hey, man, like, what has really the drinking caused or the drug use caused, right? Like, has it caused problems? If so, like, what does those problems look like? Like, let's dig around. Sometimes the answer is even none, not at all. Right. It's, all right, well, what about emotionally? Why are you sitting in the chair with me? Right. Right. There's something brought you here.
Right. So if you're asking me at 32, 32 years old, do I have a drinking problem? I'm not sure I've got a drinking problem, but I've got a circumstances problem. I've got a controlling family problem.
Yeah.
Now so I drink.
Now you're talking my language.
I don't have enough money problem.
Oh no.
Right. My relationships with her whoever she was, whoever she is or who I want her to be.
Yeah, she's
not
right.
She's not treating me right. Probably because I'm not worth treating right? Because I know me at 32. I'm in legal trouble. That's just bad luck. Consistent bad luck, right?
The cops just look for my truck.
Right. The cops happen to know that I just have a black truck and I only drive around at 2:00 in the morning. I don't have healthy friends, right? I don't have any, at that point, I didn't have any friends that I would be proud to claim. And I didn't have any friends who were proud to claim me, right?
Well, I mean, you can almost stop right there at the same time and be like, let's pretend everything you said was true. And at the same time, let's pretend like everything you just said is not true at all, but that's your perception of what is true. Like that's what you believe to be true. Like she doesn't treat me right. Like my bank account's just, it's not looking thick enough. Like the cops know what truck I drive. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Like it could be completely false. And if I hook you up to a lie detector and ask you if those things are true, if you believe it enough, you're going to pass.
Right.
Right. So, and even if you look at those kind of circumstances, true, false, all about perception, who the hell wouldn't drink?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Well, so it's sometimes too, like, you almost have to, start chipping away at some of, I don't want to call them delusions, but like the falsehoods.
But that's where I'm going. The next word out of my mouth was going to be to help someone actualize where they fall on this spectrum. A lot of times we just have to ask the same questions over and over in different form to pierce the delusion.
Yeah, correct. Is it possible is a great way to frame a question.
Right. Is it possible that drinking has cost you time in your life?
Is it possible that some of my own personal flaws maybe exacerbated some of hers?
Possible. Is it possible?
Highly unlikely, but possible.
Highly unlikely. But is it possible that your drinking or your recreational drug use has caused you financial distress?
That one's almost always a slam dunk.
Right. Is it possible, and this is more black and white, but is it possible that your drinking or your drug use have run you foul of the law in any way? Has your drinking or drug use harmed your financial situation, your credit worthiness? Has your drinking or drug use impacted your education goals? Has drinking or drug use impacted family life? And this is where I get a whole drop-down menu, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times, I mean, you get enough of a drop-down menu. You add professional stuff to it, if they're, lucky enough to have a job and they haven't burned that to the ground or anything like that. And you can really get a snapshot and kind of start to narrow. It's almost like throwing all the info in a funnel and having it just narrow out. And then it starts to trickle out the bottom. And you can kind of attack each one as it comes, and just kind of dissect it and get surgical.
Right. But what we're trying to pull out is, so if I ask you a question, if I say, Zach, did drinking or drugs contribute to your legal issues? What's the answer?
No, yeah.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Zach, did drinking or drugs impact your relationship with your mom and dad?
Sure did.
Okay. Did drinking or drugs impact your ability to perform in your profession at the time? You were a wildland firefighter, right?
If you asked me that, I'd actually say no.
Okay.
And I think that's part of like the falsehoods.
Right.
A lot of the times, like guys who, whether it's, recreational, whatever the case may be, they usually, if it didn't serve the user, the drinker in some kind of way, like if the stuff didn't serve me, I probably wouldn't do it.
Right.
I'm the guy, I believe that, my drinking when I was fighting wildfires, like it made me a better worker. I thought I could think faster and process information. I think we can see where that's probably, a falsehood. Right. I thought it took away my pain and allowed me to continue working, which it did until it wore off. And then I was in twice as much pain. I was more courageous. I would have swore by that one. Better leader, so on and so forth.
Right. And for people at home, we have a lot. There's a big chunk of folks at home right now who are self-diagnosed ADHD or self-diagnosed anxiety, depression, whatever.
Yeah.
Who self-medicate.
Yeah.
Right. And these are my people. These are the people I want to wrap our arms around. Right.
Yeah, man.
Because until it's introduced, those folks have no idea how much relief there is available in unchaining themselves from those substances, right? And those are the people that I want in this room with us right now.
Well, yeah, because then you can help lead them to a place of actually being in freedom. Like like the drugs, the alcohol, the this, the that. Like it always provides relief. It's good at providing relief, and we could get relief, but relief is it's short term, it's temporary, it's fleeting. Like we want true freedom. Right. From these kind of things, like freedom from fear, freedom from anxiety, freedom from, the depression or whatever the case may be. Like we want freedom. We want no chains attached.
Right. So again, imagine I'm reclining. I'm 32. I'm just climbing out of, I'm actually just climbing out of jail. Okay. All of my problems are someone else's fault.
Yeah.
Right. I want you to hit me with questions. Hit me with the questions, and I'm going to give you truthful answers at the time of my life. Help me actualize for everyone at home. Help me actualize that my answers are actually pointing me towards the fact that I do have an issue. Okay. Trapdoor, guys. I had a really big issue. Okay. Landed in jails for years and years, trashed all my relationships, liar, thief, criminal, the whole thing. But I thought my problems lied on everyone else's shoulders. And that was part of my delusion in my drinking. And the delusion runs strong in those who abuse chemicals, right?
Yeah.
And, what I want to do here is have you chop me open. I don't think there's any harm in it. So hit me with it, man. Help me figure out that I've got an issue.
Well, I mean, you got to look around the picture, man. Like you're getting out of jail. Where you at? Where you staying at? Like paint me a little bit of a picture that I'm working with. You're 32. You get out of jail. Where you at now?
I'm going to be at a halfway house off of Nolensville Road, Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
I got $900 to my name.
Okay.
That my attorney let me keep.
Right. Good on him.
Yeah.
Better than most.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm really not sure. What I've got a problem is that my parents won't bail me out.
Yeah.
Right. That's my issue.
Right. And you're on parole, probation. It don't matter either way. You're getting hit with
12
the
years.
test.
12 years.
12 years. You got to drop urine. All the works.
Whole thing.
Great. What's the longest you've been sober?
Sober and working a program of recovery about 6 months. Dry drunk about a year plus.
Was the year while you were incarcerated?
No.
Okay. Respect.
It was actually just white knuckle to the max. I have, looking back, I think I replaced drinking with working as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
To make it look like I had things going well.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me get on my ducks.
When I say white knuckle, man, I'm talking about like both hands about ready to pop.
Yeah. The death grip.
Death grip
is what I call it.
10 and 2, right?
You know what I mean? Yeah. Just miserable inside. Look at it. When you were sober for the year, start there. I think that's even more important than you just getting out of jail, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I point to. I say, no, I can't be an alcoholic because I was substance free for a year, right?
Yeah, I think it all leads back to, that point in time where like you originally pick up. I mean, if you just white knuckling the shit out of the situation, you're just prey to misery, depression, like you can't make a living, like your relationships are suffering, like you're working all the time, like you've basically just tagged a substance out and tagged work in. And of course it's not sustainable, right? So it's a matter of time until you just get wound so tight that you just pop, there's an explosion, right? And you go back to it, and it's almost like when we try to self-will these things away, there's almost a bigger explosion than ever. And
it leads to me, it goes back to ultimately those of us who have true substance use issues.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we are powerless.
I mean, it's true because I never took the first drink. I never took the first bump of coke. Like I never shot the first bag of dope when I was already messed up. Like I made that decision sober. There's like a complete inability to stay away from it. Like regardless of situation, circumstance, or the consequences that are going to come. Like I'm doing it again.
Right.
There is no say in the matter.
Right. for people at home too. So powerless, to me, powerless says, I can't live without this thing. Mm-hmm. I'm unwilling to live without this thing. Mm-hmm. I will bend my schedule. I will bend my financials. I will bend my relationships. I will bend my day. I will bend my parenting around my use of alcohol or other substances.
Yeah. Because
I will tell myself any lie to justify the fact that these substances are staying with me today.
Well, you have to. It's a survival mechanism.
Right.
I don't want to look at the fact that I'm just a really bad father when I'm getting messed up, or a bad husband or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case is. And, you know, at the same time, like if you really look at like what powerlessness is, obviously it means to be without power, but like if you lack power, like especially around substances, you also lack choice and control. Mm-hmm. If you lose one, you lose all three. You lose choice, you lose power and control. You lose control, you lose power and choice. Like it's really how it kind of looks.
So for someone that's sitting on the fence going, man, these guys, I don't know about these guys, they might be all right, but I'm not powerless. What questions would you ask someone sitting at home? They're sitting there saying, man, this thing does have a pretty good pull on me. I've gone from using on the weekends to, now my weekends are 3 days. And now I'm using midweek again. Maybe these guys are onto something. Help me examine powerlessness.
Okay. Easy. Well, first and foremost.
Come on with it.
First and foremost, how much are you drinking throughout? Are you a drinker? Let's establish what you're using.
Okay. I'm drinking.
Cool. That's an easy one to go with.
Okay. I'm drinking and there's become some pain pills involved. Okay. But just on the weekends. Just on the weekends.
It's okay.
Okay.
Really? Look at the drinking. Leave the pain pills to the side for now. Okay. I mean, we ain't got to talk about it. How much are you drinking?
I'm just drinking on the weekends.
Only on the weekends?
Yeah.
I thought you just said you were drinking during the week.
Well, right now it's just on the weekend.
Okay.
Right? But I get blackout every weekend.
Okay. Those are my favorite.
Right.
The binge drinkers.
Right.
They're even more of a wild card. You don't know what they're going to do. And
again, I'm not calling anybody an alcoholic.
Right.
Or an addict who has a great time on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Right? But I think there's a grand section of people out there right now who, particularly post-COVID, mm-hmm. Have a lot of unsettled feelings and a lot of insecurities, and had a lot of time on their hands during COVID where we all had to learn to cope. Some of us learned to cope by getting into community, right? Mm-hmm. Dialing down on family, right? Getting closer with people. And it gave a lot of people a chance to isolate. And we know isolation is where substance use thrives.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I'm just a regular guy. I drink a few times a week, but I tend to drink till.
Didn't overdo it on the weekend. Maybe I'm blackout every now and then, right?
Right. Do I have so I'm trying to decide, do I have an issue, or am I a guy who likes to drink cold beer?
How often we blacking out on the week? Is it every Friday and Saturday night? What's it look like?
Every Friday and Saturday night, and but I'm usually a really nice drunk. Okay.
Great. So we're blacking out pretty much every Friday and Saturday night, right? So why do you begin drinking on Friday and Saturday night? No wrong answers.
To have fun.
Okay. But where does it end up?
I end up drinking by myself.
Well, for the sake of playing devil's advocate, like how much fun are we having? Right. And at the same time, like if I'm drinking for fun, wouldn't the point to be remember the fun that I had?
It would be. And I think that's where I want to pause and go, wait a minute. If it's just for fun, mm-hmm. what do we only have fun on Friday and Saturday nights, right? Mm-hmm. Or if it's just for fun, why does every event that I go to feature alcohol?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you want to steer if somebody's drinking a little too much and you want to steer them away from it, you also have to construct a life that like is attractive mm-hmm. with less or none, depending on the situation.
Right.
You just have to. You got to build up the rest of the life around it.
So if I come to you and I say, Zach, I really think that I've got an issue with alcohol. I'm not an alcoholic, mm-hmm. But I think that I tend to get in trouble with my relationships. I've blown a few work assignments. Had a conference that I really acted out at. Can you help me?
Yeah, I've done that for the record.
Right.
I can think of a couple conferences and didn't go too good.
Right, but you've also you've also, I can identify specific cases where I know you've guided guys through this exact thing. Walk me through how you guide a friend of ours who blew a conference, right?
Okay.
A couple years ago. Blows a conference, gets in trouble with work, becomes a client of ours instantly. Walk me through how you ushered him into
he's a perfect
what
example.
became recovery.
He's a perfect example too, because he is a guy who's not, like the quote unquote real alcoholic. If you asked him, he would tell you he's a problem drinker, but he's really not an alcoholic.
Right.
He can control and moderate. You need to take a little break first, but he can't control or moderate. But with him, where we started was actually just, identifying what his priorities in life are and what holds the most depth and weight as far as importance, right? Because up until that point, his actions and his words, as far as what's important to him, they weren't aligned. They were completely contradicting each other.
Tell you family and work.
Right. And every time they contradicted each other, you would just go into more shame and guilt about it. And it would just, it would progress further into, the drink. So, step one there was really like, okay, man, like let's iron it out. What's most important to you? What are your priorities? Why? Why are those even your choices?
Right.
Right. We don't even have to look at the drinking right now. Right. If we handle one, the other one's it's probably going to fall in line given a long enough time frame. So that's what we did. And then the next step that we did was like, okay, like now that we have identified these priorities, if all we do is identify them and then stop, this shit's useless anyway. So now we got to come up with an action plan on how our actions can actually align with those. Okay. What can we start doing on a practical application side of things? And start elementary, because you want to get a series of small W's. You want to put some wins on the board.
I'm with it.
And then let them snowball. Right. Like how about, it sounds almost silly to somebody who wouldn't understand because of how small they are. It's like, okay, how about at 5 o'clock when you get off work, let's actually go hang out with the kids first. Let's not go to the bar right away.
Right.
Let's pump the brakes on it at least. Right. We don't even have to totally throw it away right now. If you want to go at 8:30, whatever. But right now, like, let's stop going from point A to the bar at point B. Let's go visit kids and wife first. Right. Like, let's get you involved on the family side of things, because that was, per what he said, a top priority. Right. The next thing is work. Well, if it's work, we got to get you to a place where you don't feel like this outcast when you're there, like all eyes are on you.
But wait, I've got to entertain people for work. Drinking's part of the culture.
Right. It is.
What do I do?
Perfect. How else can you entertain? What else is fun? Is drinking really the only fun thing that you have?
I'm not as warm. I'm not as creative. I'm not as social. How do I?
So what we do is we instead of tailoring a substance to create those things, we start looking at environments that can help do the same thing. Right. So let's say instead of, and then they can be places where they're still drinking, but maybe you're not as prompted to drink. Like maybe instead of going to just like a really upscale bar and that's all it is. Okay. Like how about we start doing entertaining at different, nightclubs, like comedy clubs. Let's take them to Zanies. Right. Let's take them to, the Grand Ole Opry. Right. Let's get them on a tour at the Ryman.
Right.
Let's expand our horizons on other ways that can still be fun, engaging. There can still be drink. That way the people you're entertaining, like if they want to drink, by all means, you'd kind of be an asshole if you demanded that they don't drink just because you're trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like you really can't, we can't, move the earth and, make everybody act how we think they should just because you're trying to do something different. So we got to just create the environment.
But when we've got someone who's had like an event that gets him to this contemplative state where, hey, I've just had an alarm clock go off in life. Yeah. And it sounds like people are concerned about me, that love me or that pay me. And their continued support depends on me curbing what I've been doing. Right. I think there are countless of those people that could be in this room with us right now. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the most encouraging thing that I could tell them is that if this has always been my thing, if you think you are alcoholic, I would invite to continue to look into that. Right. Most people who have an inkling that they have an issue, they're already right. Yeah. And most of those people who think that they have an issue have a circle of people around them that know them and love them that think the very same thing.
Yeah, fact.
Right? We are so delusional as drinkers and users that we think we have the world fooled, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know. Oh, they be knowing.
Yeah, surprise.
You know what I mean? They know, right?
Hey, I was a gallon a day whiskey drinker at the peak of my addiction. Really. And I had the whole world fooled, and I'm the guy who, if you said you're an alcoholic, my rebuttal would be like, no, I'm not.
Right.
Well, you drink a gallon a day? No, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I'm the delusional one who drinks the exorbitant amount and will tell you, no, I don't.
Right.
That's crazy.
And that's, it's funny when we deal with particularly families of young men, and they're sure that their young man, their son, is the most strong-headed, the most independent,
right,
the most bold guy that we'll ever meet. And my stock answer, not to be flip, is, have you ever considered that he's just a little bit more strong-headed and bullheaded than you are, right?
Yeah.
He's just a little bit more determined to get his way than you are to keep peace, right?
And the young guys just hate hearing from mom and dad.
Right.
A whole different conversation, but sometimes it's not even the message; it is the messenger. And sometimes who it's coming from is the FU behind it.
I think that's true, because if I said this is when I was a kid, if somebody like the Fonz or Michael Jordan, or today to me, like somebody like Young Jeezy, or somebody that I thought was cool, or LeBron, right? If somebody were to come to me and say, hey man, all that stuff you're doing, all that drinking, all that smoking, the pills, you don't need that, I would have believed it. Mm-hmm. I needed somebody, right? I needed somebody believable to just come grab me by the shoulder that wasn't my mom, wasn't my dad, wasn't my girlfriend or my big brother. Somebody out there to say, hey man, you're good enough as is.
Yeah.
You don't need to continue to build good enough by putting things in your body, right? And I think that's where I want to grab viewers from is, am I taking substances to feel better to feel good enough about myself so that I can take part in the day? And if the answer is yes, I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, because it to me it's not rocket science, but it's not easy. Like if you want to start feeling good about yourself, like, and you want to build some self-esteem, well then you got to start doing some esteemable shit. But the question is always kind of the same, at least from the people I work with. To me, it's just like, well, where the hell do I start?
Right.
And what does that look like? And once again, it's just a series of practical applications throughout a day. Start elementary, build that shit up, and stack the W's on the board.
Right. So you said something interesting a minute ago I want to circle back to. If we're helping someone self-diagnose, whether they've got an issue or not, I've got my priorities that I've listed.
Yeah.
Family, work, financial security, whatever that looks like. Those are my steady priorities. Does my drinking or my drug use get in the way? Mm-hmm. If the answer is yes, why do I continue to do so? And I think when you look at the why, that's when we get to really start dialing down and saying, hey, have you considered that you may have lost power in this choice, right? Mm-hmm. If you lose power, you've lost choice, right? And once power and choice are gone, here we find ourselves in addiction.
Yeah.
Right? Addiction does live on a spectrum. I can't fight that. Right? Guys like us that were pretty rough. There are much prettier stories out there.
Oh yeah.
That not everyone has to go to the bottom.
Nope.
Right? I think that's a myth.
Well, you get the image of, the alcoholic or the addict on Skid Row, living under the bridge, pushing the shopping cart. And it just doesn't always look like that. Like a lot of times they look like firefighters. Sometimes they look like policemen and lawyers and doctors. The list goes on. Mm-hmm. Pilots, executive level professionals?
For me, I always looked at the guys under the bridge saying, I can't be alcoholic because that's what an alcoholic is.
Yeah.
I can't be a drug addict because that's where they live. Right. I never bothered to consider that the difference between myself and those guys were that I had generous parents who would rescue me. Right. I came from a family with resources, so that, I knew nice people. I knew who to ask for jobs.
And I'm a professional at knowing how to ask.
And I'm a professional manipulator, right? Once it became clear to me that my actions were the very same as the actions of those guys and girls who were living under the bridge, I got a reality check, right?
Yeah, man.
The reality check for me was sitting in big boy jail, right? With looking at a big boy sentence and realizing that my actions had severed ties with my family. My mom, you're dead to me, right? Yep. My dad, call me a month from now on a Sunday. The call will last as long as you're positive, right? Double-crossed my friends. I'd embarrassed the other ones.
Yep.
My attorney wanted to quit on me. I had no soft place to hang my hat, so to speak, right? That's where my drinking had gotten me. And the gift that I want to give and the gift that I want this show to be for everyone out there is to keep those scenes out of as many lives as we can by helping people identify, hey, I might have an issue. I need to raise my hand and get some help right now, right? Yeah. I don't have to let it get that bad.
And everyone's story looks a little bit different.
Right.
Right. I mean, even when I look at I got sober at 28 years old after, a long, and I was only 28, but it was 16 years of daily use.
You gonna tell the chicken story?
The which one?
The chicken story?
I got there's 3 chicken stories.
Hit me with the best one.
Oh, man. I want to know which one you're thinking of.
The KFC.
Oh, yeah. That was just a sad, pathetic. Like when I looked at that from the outside looking in, I was just pathetic. Right. I used to, at one time I'm all the way at the top, dude. I mean, I'm a hotshot firefighter, fighting wildfires.
Jumping out of helicopters.
Yeah, man. I got all the accolades in the world. Like that's the story. But where I ended up eventually was the way I used to eat was I was in Florida, and I used to sit outside, not directly, like across the street from a KFC.
Not directly.
I didn't want them
to be obvious.
I didn't want them to spot me. Yeah. So I would sit across the street from a KFC because it was they would get the buckets of the chicken. So it was the only place and they would all eat outside because it's Florida. Then, they wouldn't eat it all and they'd just get up and they'd leave the bucket on the table.
Right.
And I'd sit there all day and I'd get 50, 60 pieces of chicken because I figured they were untouched. Mm-hmm. And I'd throw them in a freezer and I'd mix them in rice or whatever. And that was how I ate. That's where I got to. Right. And at the same time, in my world, when I was, out there running and gunning, I really I didn't have there was no parental eyes on me. I mean, I was pretty much out of the house at 16 and that was just, treating life like I was a grown adult, which worked phenomenally in the beginning.
Right.
But at the end, I think if this might be wishful thinking, it might be real, but if it's probably real, if I had some resources, if I had some people that would be like, hey man, it's probably not normal to be, doing your grocery shopping from other people's KFC orders. Yeah.
Right.
We maybe could have curtailed some of this stuff. It doesn't have to go that deep.
Right.
It doesn't have to get that dark.
But I think the thing that was always true for me in retrospect was I was always willing to lose the next thing as long as I was allowed to continue to drink and use.
Yes.
Right. All the way up until, losing my freedom. But nothing stuck with me until my mom, rest in peace, my mom told me, hey, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
I'm done with this drama.
Yeah.
I'll always love you, but I don't like you. And I'm done. She hung that phone up and she meant it, right? And that moment for me was when like loneliness, despair, like I'm at like the crossroads, right? And I sat there in that crossroads. I didn't decide to get sober right in that moment, but I knew I had to change.
Yeah.
And everything had to change.
Hell,
you
might sit in that crossroad for a month.
I think I probably did. And, you know, I'm sitting there looking at 12 to 20 calendars in prison, right? Mm-hmm. And I had this realization that all I wanted to do, sometime in sitting at that intersection of loneliness and despair, I had this idea that, man, I've got to figure out how to get sober and die that way. Mm-hmm. And no matter what happens between now and the day of my death, I've got to get clean and stay clean, right? And there was no guarantee that I was going to get out. You know, I'm counting birthdays and holidays, and, you know, my nephew's going to go from 8 to 22 or whatever that's going to look like. And, you know, my life I had forfeited my freedom and forfeited my life.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody's story looks different, right? I want us to be able to get to those people, those guys and girls sitting at home right now that are just watching us on the phone on their way to work or whatever. Like, I want those guys and girls to know that, hey, you don't have to chase this thing to insanity or complete destruction.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got a pitch right now, you've got, God knows how many people watching us right now. You've got a pitch. Give me your best shot. Invite me and our listeners as Zach, as the guy who knows, the guy who cares, world-class interventionist, world-class recovery coach who's worked with, you know, executives, military, athletes, entertainers. Go ahead and give me your best invitation, man. Walk me off the ledge.
You know, the best part is, like, if we're going to do like a 12-second elevator pitch, just trust the process. Trust the process. Try it. Drugs and alcohol aren't going anywhere. Right. They never will, ever. For as long as we live, for as long as our kids live, our kids live, like, there's always going to be drugs. There's always going to be booze. We can always go back. Simple as that. But on the flip side, what if you found something so beautiful, so fulfilling, so wholesome, so loving, so pure, so giving, that it trumped everything you thought you know about drugs and alcohol? Would you commit to that?
I would commit to that.
Right. It's a no-brainer.
But that's where I'm saying, like, I wish the Fonz was there to say, hey, man, I got something way better.
I wish it was
you gotta drop this bullshit first, because you can't have your hands full. Mm-hmm. I can't have my hands full of my answer and accept the one you're trying to give me. Right? It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. I got to put mine down to pick up what you got. Right. And you correct me if I'm wrong. What you're inviting me to, I think, and what I'm inviting people to is a therapeutic process, diagnostic, introspective work, like we're inviting people to today. 12-step recovery where there's community, right? When I got to 12-step recovery, I found what I had looked for in every bag of blow, every cold beer, and every shot of whiskey.
Yeah.
I was whole. I was welcomed. I felt cool, right? I felt loved and seen and known. And I had so much in common with everybody in the room that I hadn't even spoke to yet.
Yeah.
Right? And I'd had this archaic idea that recovery meant there was going to be a bunch of old white dudes with a single light bulb in a church basement drinking shit coffee.
Yeah.
And what I found out was that, surprise, I was dead wrong.
Oh yeah, man! I thought they were all gonna be...
life in recovery is the softness, is the comfort, is the joy, is the drive that I always look for. It intrinsically gives me confidence that I needed from drugs and alcohol, right? Being accepted and welcomed has trumped what was once a crippling slavery to drugs and to booze. And that's available to everybody, right? It's available to everybody.
Free of charge.
Free of charge, right? Willingness is the only price.
Yeah.
Willingness. And, there's as we know, recovery is not necessarily linear, right? It'd be great if we started in the bottom left corner of a whiteboard and we ended at the top right and we graduate, right? And now my life's fixed. I'm better. I'm good now. What I've come to know in my years in recovery is that I am a human being dependent on grace from a power greater than myself, right? Don't care what anybody wants to call he, she, it, or them. But I've been given grace for today, right? Each day I get to wake up free and sober, brand new miracle, right? I believe that. And, there's countless people out there that are sitting there going, man, I like what you guys are talking about. I really think you're onto something, but I'm different. There's that terminal uniqueness we talk about, right? Everybody's got it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You had it. I had it. Every family we've ever worked with has got it. They won't understand that we all have one qualifier that makes us just different enough to fit outside the box.
Right.
And I've yet to find a true qualifier that lands outside the box.
I've never seen it. I've been looking hard too.
Right.
Yeah. I tried for a long time to find it with me. Well, you guys don't understand.
Yeah.
You guys don't know what it's like. I have trauma from fighting fire, which could be, it's true, but is it an outlier that's a prevention? No,
not
at all.
Yeah.
And even after I got there for a little bit, there was still some stuff where I was like, well, you guys don't know what it's like to, be on your own from 16. And it's
right.
Sure. No, 10 other dudes were like, yeah, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Dude. Right.
You guys don't know how it is to be treated different in airports because you're covered in tattoos. And you got 5 guys in the back. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, right.
Right. There's not a single thing that I found that makes me be an outlier.
There's not a single qualifier that makes me different or keeps me from accepting what's available to me in 12-step recovery, right? And 12-step isn't the only way, right?
No, it's not.
It's not. It happens to be the way that I'm most familiar with and that I see work most often for people.
I think it's the best way to get plugged into like some kind of fellowship with people who are like-minded with similar struggles, but it doesn't have to be the only channel to achieving like long-term sobriety by any means. Right.
And I think the biggest driver is just the community piece. Mm-hmm. We've got to come to understand that we are not terminally unique, right? We are not outliers to the regular or to the norm, right? And I think that's a pause point right there, because I think next what we're going to do is run everybody through what an intervention actually looks like, feels like, smells like. Mm-hmm. We might even mock up a room.
I'm with it, man. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what intervention actually is.
Right.
And people want to know, people need to know. And like, we got the information.
Right.
Let them know.
So that's will be our very next episode on the Die Sober podcast. We're going to invite you guys to come back with us. We're going to walk you through what a real intervention looks like from 2 pros, and we're going to give you our very best. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.